This is our first programming of the semester, so welcome. I'm not going to stay here too long for some of our returning guests. We like to mix things up. So I just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you for coming, but I'm going to hand it over to Eduardo to be our host for our guest speaker series for the spring semester. So with that, Eduardo, I'm handing the baton to you. Here you go.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And again, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much to our returning friends and also our new friends that braved the cold and the snow to be here tonight. And also, I would like to thank our friends that are joining us via Zoom. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to join us tonight. My name is Eduardo Novoa. I am the Technical and Training Development Coordinator here at the Ignite Hub. And like Kimberly mentioned, this is our first fireside chat of the year. So welcome. And we are very excited tonight. Again, great attendance. I'm very happy. We have a great speaker tonight and a great topic. So very excited to hear Vincent Salisbury Fong. And Vince is a technology leader with over 10 years experience building and scaling products at some of the world's most innovative companies, including Uber, Snapchat, and Netflix. He has led cross-functional teams of engineers and designers and has shipped products used by millions. He is now channeling that experience into entrepreneurship through acquisition with the vision of building and leading the next great data company. Vince was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he is a graduate of Santa Clara University, where he majored in economics and political science. Please welcome Vince Salisbury Fong. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That was such a wonderful intro. Thank you for having me. How's everyone doing tonight? I'm feeling a little full. I hope the folks online, thank you for dialing in. I hope you're also having a lovely dinner as well. And I am so excited to talk to you about product management. This is for folks who are familiar with product management or are new to product management. I hope you'll find something that will, something new that you'll learn through my presentation today. Next slide, please, Anthony. And so today I want to just talk about what product management is. I know some of you are students of the Ignite Hub. Some of you are already product managers from what I've heard. And so I just want to talk about what the career path even is and why you should consider it as a career path for students who are really interested in technology. And finally, I'll talk about how to get into this role. And so with that, I want to talk first about, next slide, please. Who am I? And as Eduardo was saying, this is my career path, Uber, Snapchat, Netflix. I worked in a variety of different product roles. And most recently, I have spent the time to go out and acquire a company. And so I'm now CEO of Audience Synergy, which is a data company. And I'm running that right now. And so you can see here that this is a path for many folks who can bring together people, bring together great products and experiences, and take that into a leadership role in the future. So I just wanted to show that just quickly. So with that, next slide, please. I want to talk about what is product management. And I think this one's actually quite hard to pin down. One of the things that is notorious about this role is that nobody really knows what they do. And so what I thought we would do is actually play a game. And I'm going to be your game show host tonight. And you are going to step into the role of what it is going to be like to be a product manager. So with that, next slide. What would you do? And so we are going to put you in the shoes of a particular potential situation that has likely happened to some product manager. And I want to start off with something that you're all familiar with. So I want to get a raise of hands. How many of you have Netflix at home? Okay. Okay, so not very many of you is what I'm hearing. But I think all of us, if you have seen Netflix, you've probably seen this feature before, which is called autoplay. Does anyone know what autoplay is? Okay. autoplay is a feature at Netflix, which you've probably experienced and are probably pretty annoyed by. It is an experience where you turn on the TV and you scroll over a title and the trailer automatically starts playing. And then the sound blares out of the TV and you're like, why would they do this? Who did this? If you go to the next slide, you'll see this. You'll turn this on, you'll hover over that experience, and you'll go, oh my gosh, what idiot came up with this feature? Well, I have news for you. It wasn't me. But it was someone at Netflix, and this feature is called autoplay. And so I want you to imagine that you're the person who released this feature and put it out into the wild. And I want you to imagine that you have decided that this is the right feature for customers of Netflix. Why? Well, because maybe you thought, well, I have to click a number of times to watch a trailer, so why don't I just shortcut the whole thing and just take you directly into the trailer? Easy, right? Well, as you can clearly hear from our audience, it's really not quite that great of an experience. And I want to show you some very real reactions to this feature. So if you go to the next slide, please. Well, can we play the first tweet? I want to read this to you. Netflix auto-playing trailers while browsing is just as annoying as those websites that used to autoplay music. And for the young'uns in the room, young'uns meaning anyone younger than 30, there used to be a site called MySpace, and they would play the music when you opened the website. Horrible. Who would do such a thing? Can I get the next tweet, please, Anthony? All right. Netflix autoplaying previews for every single show is one of the most pronounced user-hating experiences online in a while. I get that it helps juice the audience count, but it turns browsing into a game of hot potato. Okay, and I want to play the last one. Okay. Disheartened to see that the Senate did not subpoena the biggest tech villain in our country, the Netflix executive who changed the home screen to autoplay a trailer if you hover on a title for more than 2 seconds. Does it sound like people like this feature? No. Okay, well, you go, imagine yourself as the product manager and you're seeing these tweets come in. You are the one who has made this decision to make this feature go live. And so now you have a decision. After seeing this horrible reaction, you go, well, they don't like it, so maybe I don't want to, maybe I don't want to have this on Netflix anymore. But I want to throw a little wrench in the scenario. Let's play the next slide. It's Friday. You want to go home, but your analytics team pings you. They say, we just ran the test, and we can prove that this feature generates $200 million worth of revenue. Just by more people viewing trailers, they now watch 5% more viewing time. These are all fake numbers, by the way, but this is just a hypothetical for what could actually happen. And at the same time, you get an email from your CEO saying, I hate these tweets. They're bad for the brand. Do something. So you're in this bind. I want you to imagine what it's like. On the one hand, you have one team that has basically secured their promotion by claiming that they made $100 million. And the other side is a very angry CEO. And you also have users that are just plain angry with you. So I want to ask you, what would you do? And so, next slide, please. We're going to have everybody kind of sign up and see what they would do. So I have 3 answers for you. If you can pull your phones out and scan this QR code, we'll be able to see how people do. So you have option 1, option A, kill the feature, and you'll be directly accountable for $200 million less in revenue. Option B, you keep the feature and you suffer the CEO's wrath. Maybe you're fired the next day. Or C, none of the above, and you have a much better idea. So I want to see how y'all do. So I have my own thoughts as well. Okay, so, okay, wow, okay. We have 21 respondents. I'm really excited to see this many coming in. We have about a little over 2 dozen, almost 2 dozen. So I'm just really excited to see everybody entering it in. Has everyone entered in an answer yet? Okay. Okay, so what I would love to do is maybe start with option A. Who put in option A? Does anyone want to volunteer why they entered it? And I'll have the team hand over the mic, kind of share a bit. You would say remove the feature.
Anybody? Anyone here chose A? We want to volunteer that you say A? All right.
Just one did.
Okay.
No other
All right.
comment, just that they did.
Okay, so for those that might have answered A, do you want to elucidate the audience and let us know why you chose this feature?
I did not choose it. Go ahead. I did not choose it, but I can argue for A. Okay, go ahead.
But my thought would be to kill the feature if we look into the North Star matrix in terms of whether there's a direct relationship with this drop in subscription, perhaps. If there's a drop in subscription, you could compare to see where's the revenue actually is being generated. And based on that, potentially you could kill the feature as well.
Okay.
Not a bad answer. Not a bad answer. For those that are not familiar with the North Star metric, this is corporate speak, and what that means is it is numbers that everyone needs to get behind, and so you're watching those numbers on a daily basis. So I just want to let you know that that's what a North Star metric means. Okay, so would anyone love to talk about who chose option B? Eduardo.
So I chose option B because I think that in the long run, people will accept it. And it will be better for you to put bottom line in the company. This is my thinking. We hated when supermarkets started putting self-checkout lanes, but now we have accepted it, and that has saved supermarkets a ton of money. So sometimes you need to stick with the bad reviews for a little while if it's really impacting your bottom line. That was my thinking why I chose B. And the CEO will be mad, but when he sees the quarterly returns, he will rehire me.
I like that. I like that. Solid plan, solid answers from two folks. I really like those. I think that those are really great answers. One was about did it hit those metrics or those numbers that the company is always trying to hit? That's always something that's on an executive's mind, and so that's something that one can consider in deciding. Maybe there's more information. Maybe the analytics team is not considering it as strongly. Maybe for Eduardo's answer, keeping the feature and suffering the CEO's wrath. Well, when he sees the money, or he or she sees the money coming in, well, maybe they'll just retract the email. It's not really a big deal. Maybe on the other hand, there's long-term brand damage. There's a company like Snapchat went through an entire redesign, and it tanked the brand image for a very long time. And so it's not always the case that even if there's something that a company does, which is good in the short term, it might be bad for the long term. These are all really tough trade-offs. These are all really tough decisions. Okay, though most of you have chosen option C, you feel like there's a better idea. So I want to hear your better ideas, and I'll hand it off.
Okay, we have you. So.
Hi, thank you. I will say, for me, my perspective is biased
in that it's less that I'm worried about what the idea is and more the logic of making a move. So having worked in market research and analytics at Twitter, I feel like you have to have data and evidence to prove why you would kill a feature or keep the feature. So instinctively, I would say you're probably going to keep it anyway, but regardless, it has to be based on some evidence.
Anyone else? Chose C. Okay. Go ahead.
2 that chose C in the chat. Carla said, I choose option C. I would add a toggle button to switch the autoplay on or off. Those who like it can keep it, and those who don't could switch it off. Meshan said, C, extend the seconds from 2 seconds autoplay to 4 or 5, or allow folks to opt out, which most people like the option but won't spend the time actually doing it.
How does it feel as people who use Netflix, imagining someone saying, oh, I'm going to add the option, but knowing that none of you are going to do it anyways? You know, that's it. That's something to think about. You know, there's when it comes to maybe toggles, how many of you knew that there was a toggle to turn off autoplay? Did everyone here know that? Some people know. Sounds like many of you do not. You know, that's something that is a decision for a product manager. You know, there's and then can you remind me what the first answer from Carla was again?
That she would add the toggle button to switch the autoplay on or off.
Yes, yes. And we also heard some folks like Na here who mentioned that you know, maybe there's a lot of skepticism around a claim, like a big claim that this makes $200 million. You know, maybe it's worth putting some cold water on that before you hastily make a decision. Right. So there is so much at play here in a really high pressure environment. And this is what product managers do on the regular. So I want to go to the next slide, please. Every product that you see on the internet, every product that you hold, every product that you touch is just a series of decisions. Every single decision made is intentional and meant to serve some functional purpose for the customer. And the people who are accountable and make many of those key decisions are called product managers. And this is a specific department that exists in many technology companies for the express purpose of delegating decision-making on how the product experience is going to look for you as the customer. Next slide, please. And so, as you saw, there are many different competing perspectives for any decision. There are the engineers, as an example, who may want to put this in as a promotion in their promotion packet, saying, I built a feature that made $100 million, and they get promoted. Maybe the design team says, well, our customers hate it, and I am the voice of the customer. So I wouldn't want this feature launched because people don't like it. And if I have to put this on my portfolio, people would just say, wow, I hated that feature. You designed that? That's horrible. Maybe the sales team says, oh, we made so much more money. This is great for us. We want this feature shipped. Maybe the analytics team has a really strong incentive to produce something that is just a really great win for them. Maybe there's an integrity here where if you didn't decide to move forward, that their integrity would be at stake and they want this decision to go through. And you can see that those tweets may be bad for the brand as well. So there's competing interests from customers. So all of these teams have vested interests for different ways that this could go. And at the end of the day, for product managers, the real truth is that they will not make everyone happy, and that they have to make really tough decisions all the time to balance between the different needs of those teams so that the product experience is the best that it could be. And so, can I go to the next slide, please? Great. So you got a little bit of a taste for how it feels to be a product manager, but what does it take to become one? Well, there's a variety of different skills. I call this the technical skills with the people skills. And so a product manager is expected to have at least familiarity with many of these disciplines, such as being able to code to talk to engineers, design language, being able to speak the language of design. How might we best create the best user experiences for the customer? That is in itself a whole discipline and a whole field of knowledge. The analytics team, you should have familiarity with what an A/B test is, why there are trade-offs with doing too many of them. That's another fascinating field of study and lots of trade-offs there too. And you need soft skills, being able to build coalitions. When you see decisions like this, you saw how many people really would react strongly in different ways. And as a product manager, you need to be able to build the consensus around bringing that decision to life and being okay with a faction that is going to be opposed with what you're doing. And the most important thing is what product managers are graded on in their promotion packet, which is called product sense. How many of you here are familiar with the term product sense? Product sense. Okay, good. I get to explain what product sense is. And product sense is a specific skill that product managers are judged upon that dictates how well that they can create and serve great products experiences to their customers. So I'll go through what that is next. I really break it down to 3 parts: intuition, clarity, and conviction. And intuition is often one of the key areas that product managers are judged on. What do customers really truly need versus what do they say they want? And there's a big difference between those two, right? There's that famous quote from Henry Ford that says, if I asked customers what they wanted, they would want a faster horse. Well, he didn't create a faster horse, he created something entirely different, right? What do customers actually need? So that's the what. Then you have the clarity, which is what is the right product experience? So what is the solution? So if the first around intuition is truly understanding the pain and the problem of the customer, then the clarity is around what should be served to the customer. And finally, the last one is conviction. Once you have those 2 elements, do you have the conviction to make this judgment call when people might not like it? And I think that's one of the hardest and most difficult areas because, as you saw earlier, every decision has a trade-off. Every decision has a consequence. And so it's really important for product managers to have really strong faith and conviction in the decisions they make, even if there's data that might be opposed to them, even if there are teams that might be opposed to them. These are some of the key elements of what makes for a great product leader. All right, next slide, please. So, as I was saying, when it comes to decisions, you will not make everyone happy, and there's no such thing as a right answer. None of the answers that everyone gave earlier were wrong. All of them were valid decisions. The only thing that matters for a leader is the conviction to make sure that decision goes through. And so it is so vitally important that people understand, at least for product management, that you will not have the right answer, but you will be expected to have the answer, if that makes sense. Next slide, please. So, all right, I talked about what it is. I want to talk about why you should consider product management to be your career path. So I have 3 reasons. As always, product managers talk in terms of 3 because it is just the way that you communicate things easily. So next slide. Really just 3 things. The first is it's challenging. As you saw, this is a really intellectual decision-making role. You have to constantly be on your game to be able to answer all of the constituent questions that come up from teams. It's rewarding. It's really impactful. As you saw, the autoplay feature is something that everyone has been annoyed with. So clearly it was impactful. Right? And many of the CEOs of technology companies were former product managers. Sundar Pichai of Google was a former product manager. Satya Nadella was a former product manager. The CEO of Yahoo was a former product manager. And I could just go on and on about many of the CEOs that exist. And one of the reasons why is because the same skill sets that go into becoming a great leader are fostered when you are product manager. And the last one is it pays well. So the average salary for a product manager in the United States is $125K, great dollars. If you find yourself in a really great position and you work for one of the big tech companies, those salaries can push to 300. I've heard stories of people going up to $700,000, $800,000 in total compensation for this role. And it's not because it's easy, it's because it's really hard. It's really rigorous. And so highly consider it. It has great qualities for a great career path. Next slide, please. So if I have sold you on becoming a product manager, I want to tell you how to actually get there. So this is where I try to close you on my sale. So next slide. So the first is Montgomery College has some really great courses. I had a chance to actually go through and take a look at some of the courses which would map directly to the skill sets that we have. So maybe you take the Intro to Programming in Python, have an idea of what trade-offs engineers have to make great software products. There's also a advanced graphic design for web and interaction. There's also a design boot camp. I literally just saw that earlier, and I was like, wow, that would be a great one. There's a data analytics practitioner. This is specific and getting nitty-gritty into the details of how to actually manipulate and use data. And of course, there's the classic people skills, how to manage organizations, how to bring people together. And really, the last one is product sense. So the question is, how do you even get to know this? What I would say is that learning product sense is like learning to play an instrument. You're not going to learn how to play an instrument well just by reading about it. You have to go and do it. So my recommendation is learn how to build products. You can make your own app or your own service. It's actually much easier, and I'll go through some of those materials soon, but it's really much easier than you think it is today. Maybe you have a personal idea that you've always wanted to try. Maybe it was a service for your family that was all about maybe facilitating Secret Santa, or you wanted to do a travel recommendation for Rockville, Maryland. Even just small personal ideas that you have are worth doing. And you'd be surprised by how people react. And you'll never really know, just like playing an instrument, you'll never really know if people really like what you're playing. So it's really important for you to just give it a try. Next slide. So I have books for you to read too. This is great evening reading. The first one is the canonical book on product management. It's called Cracking the PM Interview. I have some good colleagues that wrote this book. And this is a great book to really learn what the product management field is all about and to actually get into the large technology companies. The next one is The Lean Startup. This is a great, this is also one for the canon when it comes to startup life. It's all about finding and building really early products so you can verify and validate your questions about what you think customers will like. Remember, when it comes to that intuition, is your intuition correct? How do you test that? That's all this book is about. And the last one is The Design of Everyday Things. This one is one that I have a personal love for. It is a book all about the little things that make for great experiences. There's a whole section on doors in this book, and it's all about how doors are really poorly designed. Why you have to twist your wrist to open one, or why you have to push to open one, or when the door says, you have to pull to open it, even though it has a push bar on it, strange things like that. The book goes deeply into all of that in detail, and it's a really fascinating read. I highly recommend you read it. Next slide, please. So I have bad news for you. Product management is a role that requires 4 years experience minimum. There are roles that are straight out of college. For those of you watching who are getting their associates or moving on to getting their bachelor's, this is very unlikely that there will be roles directly for you to start. And so I highly recommend you actually start with a different role. So you can imagine yourself like a Pokemon that evolves into this role eventually. So next slide, please. So these are the 4 most common paths to becoming a product manager. Product designer is the classic example. This is a person who is in charge of this purely the surface aesthetics of the product that's being built. the flows in which the customer actually goes through. The problem is you won't have as much technical experience, and that's something that they will be judging you on when you try to get in and hired as a product manager. So this is something you would need to shore up. The next one is on the software engineering side. Unfortunately, this role doesn't have as many people skills. And so this is something that is going to come into question when you're looking to get that product manager role. So after you've taken your coding classes here, and when you get your first developer job out in the workforce, know that to get into product management, you will have to exercise those people skills. Then another one is project manager. This one's just all about coalition building, talking to stakeholders, aligning them. The problem is you won't know exactly the details of how to speak to everybody in order to push a product through the door. So you're given orders when you should be the one giving orders. So the next one is the data analyst. This was a role that is all about finding those insights. So building up that intuition and understanding the kind of hidden aspects of how customers are reacting. The problem is this is often not a people role, and that's something that you should try to shore up in order to become a product manager. So these are the 4 main paths to get into this role. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about my path because it's like, well, that's all fine and good. How did you get into that role? Well, for me, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I was around technology my whole life. And shortly after college, I was in an internship at a startup working kind of a jack of all trades job. This was a data analytics role. It was a sales role. I did cold calling. I also did operations. I did some of the marketing materials. I got a real great understanding of the finer details of what just makes a business run. Unfortunately, that startup was acquired and I was laid off. But looking back, it was one of the best things that happened to me because I ended up landing a data analytics role at Uber Technologies at the time. So this was very early on in their journey. And so I saw a company grow from less than 1,000 employees to 15, 16, 20,000 employees that it is today. And while there, I really had a singular-minded focus on becoming a product manager. And I spent a lot of my time shoring up the skills needed in order to get me there, which meant being a part of hackathons, being in front of people all day, coordinating different efforts, just so I could prove that I had the capacity to become a product manager. So what I mean to say is there is no one true way to become a product manager. This role accepts people of all types of disciplines. It's just a focus on becoming that role. And one of the most key skills is that product sense. So having a really strong idea of what customers need. Next slide. So I want to close out. I think product management is a great career path. If I didn't sell you, then I need to work on my sales skills. And the second part is, I hope that product sense, an introduction to product sense, was just something that you should consider helpful for any role that you take on. Having great conviction, having great intuition about what people need is always going to be helpful in your career. And so even if you don't consider product management a career for you, I highly recommend that product sense is something you should take away for the rest of your life. And the last thing is, as I was saying, just like playing an instrument, the only way to become great at it is to do it yourself. And so today's tools make that so easy. If you go to the next slide, please. This is just 3 tools that you can use to try and build something today. And they cost maybe 10 to 20 bucks a month. And you can you can try building facilitating a Secret Santa setup for your family. Or maybe you want to build that travel app for the Rockville, Montgomery County area. There's just so many different ideas that people haven't tried out yet. And it's because maybe they didn't have the skills in the past, but today's tools make that so much easier. So I highly recommend you give that a try. All right. I think that's my last slide. So I would love to open it up to questions.
Sorry, I had to step out for a little bit, but I didn't I'm curious about your sense of ethics when it comes to technology. Especially, we're living in a time where there's a lot of hyper surveillance, and a lot of the technological tools that were designed by some of these big platforms, like the ones you worked for, are now being utilized by, let's say ICE or other, policing forces that we know discriminate against people of color, people like you and me. So what advice do you have to, for people who are looking to develop the next big thing, and how to safeguard some of their inventions to prevent from, I guess, malusage?
Yeah, those are really great question, because as Sandy was mentioning, the ethics of building products is something that's really, really, really critical to how we should be building technology products today. There's technology is like a sword; it can injure you, and it can be used for good. And so it's really important for people to keep integrity at the top of their mind. I will tell a personal story that I have, and that I take integrity and values extremely seriously when it comes to building products. I used to work at Snapchat, and one of the products I worked on was a product called SnapCash. It was used to facilitate money transfers in the United States, and it was a potential threat vector for sending malicious images back and forth. And I decided to remove that feature, even though it had a lot of usage at the time because of its risk to and damage to individual people. And so it was extremely important for that I took that integrity and value seriously, even though it had a detrimental impact to the business. It was just a good decision to make. Now, I like to believe that every product manager is values oriented and has extremely strong ethics and integrity and principles. And unfortunately, I can't say that everyone does. And so what I would say is that I would say that as much as I can ask people to take values and integrity seriously in building products, I think the real answer is that we need to change the incentive structure for how technology products are made. And that's a totally different question and worth maybe another fireside chat. But that's a really great question. So I'm glad you asked.
Anyone else? This was great. Anyone else here? Okay, we have something online.
Ronald asks, will AI affect the future role of a product manager?
I get asked this question a lot as a product manager. I would say that it will. I think that there's just going to be less of these roles, because part of the reason why this role exists is because it is a people role. And if there's less folks who are working on products, then there will just be less of these roles. And so I can't say that it's going to be the same as it was in the past, but what I can say is that there will continue to be this role, because at certain scales of complexity for products, you will need people involved. What I would say and add to that is I believe that what's more important is not necessarily just the career path of product management, but also the product sense. And that's an intuition understanding. That's a context understanding. And honestly, it's about the soul. And I know I sound really cheesy and cliche saying that, but a great product will have a great soul. And I don't think this is something that AI will just replace overnight. You know it when you see it. When you play with a great product, you know who has really spent their time trying to make this a great product. And that resonates with people. It really does. And so this role will continue to exist, and it's a great career path. It's just the nature of it is going to change. So, but the product sense, the soul, it won't. Oh, do we have another? Okay.
So Vince, thanks for all this. This talk is pretty interesting to learn more about the role. So I know that you recently became a CEO. So can you tell us what type of skills you got as a product manager that help prepare you to lead your own company?
Yeah. So I would say the skill sets from product management that have really led me to be comfortable being a CEO is around conviction. So you often have to make decisions that won't have every single answer figured out. So you won't have enough data, you won't have enough financial information, you might not know exactly what's going to happen, but you have to get comfortable with making that call. And even in the face of uncertainty. And that's something that product management prepares you for, because no matter how much time an analyst has spent on the A/B test, no matter how much the designer has spent perfecting the designs, you never really know how a product feature is going to be received by the public. I bet the product manager who created autoplay thought that it was going to be a great idea. And the fact that it's still up probably means something, right? So what I have learned in my career in product management is that you can try to rely on data as a crutch, but it will not be enough for you. You need to have the conviction to pull through and make a great call, even in the face of uncertainty. And that's something that I'm taking away every day as the CEO of a company.
Kind of a follow-up on that one. What do you do when you stick to your guns and your decision ends up not being the right decision?
Yeah. So here's how I think about it. You make strongly held opinions that are at its foundation assumptions, but you should proceed with the assumptions because you're testing them out. And so the only reason why you would change direction is because there is material new information. So when I make a decision, it's because I have a sense of the bets and trade-offs that I want to make as an individual, and I don't know if they're going to pay off. But upon performing that decision, I am looking for material information that would materially change the assumptions underneath. So let's say I'll take Costco as an example of a company that has really stuck to their guns around having very few items for sale and relying solely on subscriptions as a way to produce profit. I think everyone here, I personally love Costco. I'm a huge fan, big Kirkland Signature fan. And the thing to note is that they made a bet that people wanted less choice. That's a bet. That's an assumption. You have to test that assumption. And if people don't resonate with that, then you need to change. But you need to have some fundamental understanding of what the customer truly wants and needs, right? We are okay with less choice because we get a lower price for the goods that we're buying, and they tend to be higher quality. And we're actually willing to accept that trade, and we're very happy with it because that's actually what we need. We need a value for what we're buying, not just the plethora of choices that we could choose. So that's how I would make that decision.
Charles Salisbury asks, what other personal alliances aid PM in executing his or her role?
Personal alliances.
Personnel alliances.
Personnel alliances. So I'm going to assume that that the question was about who is going to be my best friend in the corporate environment. I have found that my best friends in the corporate environment have been my engineering team. They have been the best people to work with and the most willing to be cool with a vision and a path. And they are the first people that I turn to and the last people that I want to upset. I think that they have been always there. Your team is your core team. And the core team is product design engineering. And so for me, that has always been number one. And then number two for me has been design. And if there are designers watching this video, I'm so sorry. It's not personal. It's just, I just really love my engineering teams.
Anyone else? Oh, yes.
Hi again. Two questions. One's related to your title as CEO, and the other one's related to product management. The first one, as CEO, let's say you are starting up a business from the bottom up, and you create that team. Would you, or do you believe people would find it hard? Well, let's backtrack. Would you find it difficult to delegate tasks to other people if sometimes you're in the mindset that you can get the job done yourself?
Okay, I'll come back. Oh, you want?
I'm going to try to, if I could repeat your question back to you. The question is, do I, as someone who is building the company from the ground up, do I delegate tasks when trying to design the organizational structure? Do I design tasks that I delegate to other people, even though I could do them better? Is that right?
I guess I should elaborate more too, because for me, like my personal experience, I have a team when creating something, and sometimes like I position myself to develop skill sets that enable me to actually get the job done as well. But it comes to the point where like there are some limitations to how I would pursue things given the time constraints and all of that. But if I have a team and let's say I want to get a certain task done, I would find it hard to delegate over to them because I believe sometimes they don't really get the job done as soon as I want. And now that will eventually create a rift between me and them. Is that something that's common or within like the realm, your realm, or?
Good question.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is about being a really capable person who is able to execute very strongly and having team members who may only execute strongly in one or two areas or not as many areas as you. And so in order to achieve your objectives, you believe that maybe it's better to take on some of those tasks to oneself. Is that kind of the best way to describe it? Okay, well, word of advice. I don't believe that that is always the best decision. I think that I think the best way to think about it is not that you're the best in a particular area. You, in the general you, I'm not trying to point directly to your character, but the general you in that you have to assess the task that you're doing against something else. So even if you are better at coding or design or marketing or sales than somebody else, the question is not whether you can do it better, but whether it is worth doing in the first place. And you shouldn't be asking, like, am I better and therefore I should do it, but rather, what is the cost to me for not doing it? What is the opportunity cost for me to not do this, to not take on this task? And use that as a way to frame your priorities. Maybe you would be better off talking to investors to raise money rather than coding and fixing a bug, even though you probably could do it better. The question is, what happens if I don't? That should be the question that you should ask yourself every day when you're about to take on a project. What happens if I do not do this task? And if the outcome is, well, nothing's really going to happen, then I really want to emphasize that you should not do that task. So I think that's how you should frame your approach to work. It should be what happens if I don't do this task? And if it's not critical, then I think that one should reconsider the priority of that task.
You said you have a second question?
Thank you for that response. The second one is related to management. What would be considered more, I guess, important? Would it be to build a new product or just build a product in this day and age?
Build a new product or building out a. This is your journey, man. I think that's my answer to you. I think that's a you judgment call. I think that's such a good question. And only you know the answer to whether that's the right decision or not in the moment. And that will come down to an intuition about what you believe about those customers. Like I was saying about Costco, the founder believed that people wanted less choice in exchange for more value. So there's just so many ways that you could make a bet and give that a try. And that's a balance of how much is that, could that product, how much work is that singular product going to take from the ground up or adding on? This is also a canonical question in many large corporate technology companies where new products create brand confusion, even if you get a green field, so to speak, to try something new. There's a trade-off. It creates brand confusion, and it's not always the best choice. But if you're starting off fresh, then you might not have a choice, right? So take that into consideration. This is really a conviction call. Yeah, I think that's how I would say it.
So kind of a follow-up on that, and it has to do with the product science as well. Well, you were talking about like how you need to be in tune of what the customer need, not what the customer want. Something came to my mind, and it was a scene on a movie about Steve Jobs, and he's meeting with his strange daughter, and she has a Walkman, a great product itself. I had one of those. I love mine. But he told her, I'm going to build you something better. Nobody asked him. Everybody was happy with the Walkman at the time. And of course, the product I came up with was the iPod. And that's where it came to me. So how you know what the customer needs?
Yeah. How does a musician know what an audience wants to hear? You know, these are really great questions. That's ultimately a fundamental understanding. You know, when you really get to know somebody, when you really understand their motivators, like maybe you've known a friend for a long time and you're like, man, like they just really like to go and party, and the reason why they want to do that is because maybe they didn't socialize a lot when they were kids. And there's like maybe that internal motivator, and you fundamentally understand that person. That's how deep product folks need to go to fundamentally understand their customer. And when you do that, you can back out what exactly they need and the unchanging things about what they need. So what's important about the scene that you talked about is that there's a story here about the customer. Let's talk the Walkman, for example. They have to have CDs to play the music. But their story is that they walk around when they're commuting from school to the bus, like I did. I'm with my own Walkman. And what they really want is, and what they really needed was a way to easily play more than just what was on that CD, because they carried around, for those that are young, so there's some young ones here, you had to carry around a little binder full of CDs. And what they needed was a way to easily access that music in their pocket. And that's why he called it 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that's what made it so revolutionary. Although I do want to add something about that story, which is that he didn't actually come up with the iPod, although this is going to give me some hate on the internet. There were whole teams. One of those teams is it's a company called General Magic that worked on PDAs, what they called personal device, personal digital assistants, of which I can consider my mother a former employee of that company. And they worked on this technology for a long time. And that same team eventually joined Apple and created the iPod and iPhone. So what I'm trying to say is that there's nothing new under the sun, but you have to understand what the customer needs. And that's always going to come forth. Focus on the things that don't change. There's a experience about music when you find something that you love and you can play it over and over and over again, but you have to go through the experience of moving through the tracks to find that true love. And that's an unchanging need.
I have another question here.
In your circles, your professional circles, are there any, because in this conversation, I'm hearing a lot about figuring out what the consumer needs, what the consumer wants, well, are there any ideas or conversations around what does humanity need, because it just seems that a lot of these products are designed for consumerism, which is fine, but how many more, photo snapping platforms do we need, and TV streaming services do we want?
I'm afraid to say that conversation doesn't come up a lot. Oh, that's another good question. Why is that? I would say that is, and for those who are here in this call today, maybe that's something you can take away for when you consider making your products, whether this is going to be net beneficial for people at the end of the day. So I would say that unfortunately in my own professional circles, that's not a question that comes up, and it doesn't come up often enough. And it may come up in ways that are maybe inauthentic. Maybe they say, I want to make a application that's about safety, but you end up violating privacy at the end of the day. So it's not. I think that oftentimes people in this field, they go into work with great intentions, and maybe not realizing the trade-offs that they produce.
I actually have a follow-up question on that sort of thought. And I'm not going to use the slang term here to keep it PG, but the general consensus of the slow degradation of products over time, especially apps and online services. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have so many thoughts on that. That's such a good question. Why are products and services so terrible these days? What does it feel that way? I can say it in one sentence. You are not the customer. You are not the customer of those products and services. And that's crazy because you're the one forking money over, right? Well, you are not the customer. The customer is the investor. And that's why you're getting these products and services that you are, is because they have a different need. And that need is sometimes called rate of return. And the reason why you see products change, like why you have to call customer service to cancel your cable subscription, is because it juices those returns, because you are not the customer, it's the investors who are. And so whenever I see a product that is really, really poor and doesn't serve the customer well, I'm like, well, why is that? Let's say I go to a local gym that is really poorly maintained, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the customer here. The owner is the customer. He's just squeezing the returns. So I think that's the way to frame the discussion. So when you see a bad service, or you see the service declining over time, it's because you're not actually the customer anymore. What else?
Okay.
Yeah, hi. So trying to wrap around your discussion on product sense and ownership with AI. So with more and more reliance on AI to help guide design principles and maybe design approach and even some analytics, do you worry that we may come to a homogeneous type of approach toward things now? Because AI products, AI models are trained on pretty much similar data sets. And then all the design teams are relying on AI assistance. So now you have, basically everyone's working off the same set of data now, and you're getting a similar sort of answers. So do you worry about that in the future, where now we're having groupthink based on AI?
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Asking questions that I've thought about often too. Dang, okay. Well, it's good to feel like I'm not the only one around here. And your point is taken. A lot of these models are built on similar data sets. They're bought from the same companies, and they use the same technology to build those surfaces. And so the question is there anything that could be really original anymore? And is there any way to differentiate? And this is where I go back to what I would say to that is actually an opportunity. And the reason why is because if everyone is doing the same thing, then they are all making the same assumption. They're all making the same bet. And it is up to you in your judgment to decide on something that is going to be in what they call in tech parlance orthogonal. And what that really means is a counterintuitive idea. And so I'll tell you a story from me. I was back at a tech company, one of the tech companies I was at. I wanted to ship a product, and the product was to make the experience mobile first. And the data that it showed, that I took actually showcased that people just didn't use the product on their mobile device. And what people would say to me over and over again is, hey, you shouldn't build this product because nobody is using this on mobile, and you can see that in the data. What I said was, the fact that nobody is using this on mobile is because the experience is so bad for the customers on mobile that they refuse to use it. Do you see how that's a different counterintuitive question? So when I hear that you have the same homogeneous ideas, then it is up to you to decide on something that is counterintuitive to that assumption. I think we can all be narrowly put into these perspectives, and it is your job to find that counterintuitive idea. When I shipped the mobile first product, it got very, very fast adoption very quickly because the story was actually that they preferred to use the service when they were out in the field. And the service didn't allow them to do that. And once it did, then usage rocketed. And so it's really important to always be questioning those assumptions, and why I'm always saying, as a former data scientist, saying, don't just trust the data. You need to have a intuition about the world that is worth pursuing and a bet that's worth pursuing.
I mean, I would just say that, like, being rebellious, right? Like, you have to, yes, understand, I guess, like, what you're working with, but in some ways, like, you were always questioning, like, but why? And, and that's kind of like what most people would treat that as, like, like you're just being oppositional, or, like a rebel, so yeah, it's fine to throw that.
Maybe a pain in the neck. Well, thank you for selling that for me. Yeah, it made us a lot of sense. I think it's worth, that's why I do believe that it's worth trying ideas that people might find unconventional for that reason, but it needs to be backed by your fundamental understanding at your core. I want to go back to that product sense. Clarity. The reason why I said clarity is a feeling. You feel and you understand when something is clear to you. And that is an emotion that you feel, and not something that can be observed directly. That makes sense, right? So that's why I believe that in order to get there, it takes deep understanding and, as Sandy was mentioning, maybe a bit of a rebellious streak, and a deep empathy for the world. And so that's something that people should utilize strongly and lean into your feelings. I know it's also cliche to say, but I think it's very important for product building.
This is kind of an extension of what you were just saying, because I feel like a lot of the questions folks have asked keep me coming back to what you said about intuition, clarity, conviction as being important. How do you see those elements of product sense overlapping or aligning with, like, traditional business tools, like a business model canvas or something? Like, where do you see those core skills and mindsets of a PM intersecting with the things folks normally say about how you approach business?
So the question was, how do you even get to clarity? Can you utilize some of the business tools and frameworks that you utilize on a daily basis? Is that going to be conducive to you getting that feeling? And So I'll use business frameworks like maybe some people have heard of SWOT. Has everyone heard of SWOT here? The SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. There's also some that are all about like competitive landscapes, et cetera, et cetera. These are all just tools to get to clarity. They're meant to provoke. They're meant to provoke an idea, an assumption about the world that is worth testing in a way that is framed for you. And so use it to get to clarity and a path for a path for framing an idea. Maybe there's maybe you find out what your true constraints are. Maybe for Costco, the constraint was, well, like we can't make good retail space, so we're just going to buy warehouses, you know? And maybe that framing of saying, well, we live in a constraint where like if we're going to serve these huge amounts of products, well, we're going to need huge warehouses, and we're going to have to make a bet that customers don't care about the retail experience of groceries. And so like there's you can see how you can start to build in the bets based upon your initial intuition, which was, I believe that customers are willing to trade on choice for more value in individual products and higher quality products.
I have one follow-up on that one as well. When you're talking about intuition, as you get further away from the front line of where the magic happens, the designers and engineers, how do you maintain your intuition and your product sense?
I think that that's another excellent question. So I utilize Netflix as a clear example because I thought everyone here would better understand it, and I didn't want to use a product that I've used in the past. Like I've built like internal revenue systems, which snooze fest. I've built products that people hated and wrote about it on Twitter, and I've built products that only make sense to maybe and used by maybe 5 people. But the way I would frame this is every time that you're performing a service or you are building something for somebody, that the person on the other end is your customer. And so it doesn't matter whether you're shipping a product to millions or you're shipping a product to one person. You will need to just fundamentally understand their motivators and who they are. And that will always bring you back to the product sense.
Anyone else? Well, if that's it, first of all, please let's give a thank you so much, Vince, for a great presentation and really great conversation as well. I think that, fascinating. Honestly, I think that we all learn a little bit more about project management and what it takes. And to me, really, it was like the skill set very similar. Now, it makes absolute sense why you're a CEO now. It makes absolute sense. So thank you, and best luck to you in that. So couple of things. Anthony, first of all, I would like to recognize my colleague, Anthony Fiora, who was behind the station, always managing the technology as well. And Anthony is going to put a QR code and a link to, thank you, to a survey. And I will ask everybody to take a minute or two to take that survey when he's going to ask you what what event did you attend? Obviously, you attended a Fireside chat, and that's today's date. And please let us know what you thought. We are going to share these results with Vincent, our speaker, and also we take these survey results to better serve you, to see what you want to hear. Did you like what you heard? What else would you like to hear? Please let us know. So that is important. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that this session was recorded, obviously, and it will be loaded up, or they will be uploaded rather, to our YouTube channel in the next 48 hours or so. And everybody that registered to this event, regardless of you were able to attend or not, will receive an email with the link to the recording and also a copy of the presentation as well. Okay. Now, with that, while you finish your survey, and thank you for taking the time to do so, I would like to just tell you a little bit about what's in the horizon here at the Ignite Hub. And our next guest speaker event will be on Thursday, the 19th, and that is going to be our Future of Tech, Launch and Learn. And that's going to be Dr. Corey Stambach that is going to be talking about another very interesting topic, and that is quantum computing. Also, following up on what Corey was saying, and thank you, I'm sorry, what Vince was saying, thank you so much for researching those courses at here at Montgomery College. But here at the Ignite Hub, if you would like to actually put to the test what you heard today, we are going to be offering in March and April free boot camps here at the Ignite Hub. And one is going to be an intro to coding boot camp. So if you don't have any experience, you want to learn the basics of what coding looks like, please register. It's going to be absolutely and completely free. And then the next bootcamp is going to be an intro to app design. Specifically, what Vince was suggesting, you try to build a prototype. And that's what it is. We come here, and that is a 4-day bootcamp here at the Hub. And then you get to design. You have to come up with an idea and an app, okay? Who will this app serve? And then you get to build a little prototype. So if you want to try your hand at, seeing how good you are at trying to come up with a product, please do register. The number of people is limited, obviously, and that's in person only. But that's some of the things that we got coming up. And again, I would like to thank Vince for a great, great presentation. I believe that this was a great start to our season. And just like to present you with this little gift. It's just a token of our appreciation. And I would like to remind our audience that our guest speakers here at the Ignite Hub, they're not compensated. They are here and they come and they share their experience, their talents, their knowledge with us, absolutely free, is their own time. So we appreciate that. And we thank you so much. And we thank everybody who was able to join us tonight. Again, for the people who made it here in person, I really appreciate it, because it's a little gnarly out there, but you made it here. And also for the friends that join us online. Again, you could be doing a lot of different things, watching Netflix, for example, but you chose to join us. So on behalf of everybody here at the Ignite Hub, I would like to thank you so much. Do check our offerings. Once again, most of our offerings here are hybrid and are free and open to the whole community. So thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great evening. Please travel safe home, and see you next time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.